Elvis. So yeah, this is a movie about Elvis, obviously, and it's all about his rise to fame and why he became one of the biggest artists ever known, if not the most famous artist. And it also looks at the downsides that came with all of that. I gotta say, this film had real personality and just a high intensity style, and by this I mean it had creative camera work and flamboyant editing to really make this a spectacle to watch. Just from the start, it's just wow, in your face. It's very showy, which is understandable when the main character of this movie is Elvis. Initially I found it a bit full on because it's like the start of the film, it's just like this, it's very intense, but it's one of those things as a viewer you almost just adjust to it and you just get used to it. It's like your eyes adjusting in the dark, you just have to experience it for a moment and then you kind of understand how the movie is paced, what the style of this movie is, and then you can just easily sort of enjoy the ride after that because you know how this movie is being delivered to you. So this film follows Elvis when he's just really getting started, when he's just starting to get people's attention and it's becoming noise, that there is this character called Elvis and that he's creating a new sound. And it shows his story, you know, from this point up until his death. And it was very interesting to me because I knew nothing of Elvis's story, literally nothing. So this was an education for me. This is like when I saw Straight Outta Compton or when I saw Bohemian Rhapsody. I knew of NWA, I knew of Queen, but I didn't really know them that well. You know, I just kind of had heard of them. I knew a couple of their songs, but I didn't know their story, and it's always been an education. I really like these true story movies about musicians, and this was another great one. I learned so much here that had no idea about. I was gripped from start to finish here, and that's just down to the incredible performance of Austin Butler as Elvis. He was so damn charismatic here, and it felt like he brought the feel of Elvis, even though I don't know much about Elvis and what he was really like. It's not like I've seen loads of footage of him or anything, so I can't really make a direct comparison here, but it just felt like his performance and the film in general honoured him. And that's also why I appreciated what this film focused on, especially in this long runtime of 2 hours 30. You can really cover a lot of ground, but I like what they were trying to focus on here, and that was why Elvis was so loved, you know, by audiences and just by everyone that knew him, why he was so appreciated. Because I was quite curious as to whether his downfall health-wise and his death would be explored heavily, but they kept his drug use to a minimum and didn't delve heavy into that, and I'm guessing that's because they wanted to honour him. After watching, I feel like this film did. You know, you understand why he turns to drugs, you understand why he becomes estranged to his wife and his daughter, but you also see that he still cares for them and they still care for him. You know, there's still that bond between them. You know, Elvis never became a bad person or a mean person or a horrible person. It just, that lifestyle consumed him. A crucial character in this film was his manager, being played incredibly by Tom Hanks. You know, he's pretty much unrecognizable here, obviously with the makeup and all that, but it was very, very impressive and he did a very good job. Obviously it's one of them, I had no idea about this person, this character that Tom Hanks is playing, but it seems like he did a bloody great job here of playing this character, and he does almost come across as a villain in this movie, even though it's not that sort of movie in a sense, but he does feel like a villain here. He feels like someone who was not really working to help Elvis. You know, it felt like he was working against him majority of the time, or at least being very deceitful and whatnot. Spoilers, but he was a very interesting character as well and very well portrayed. This was a really enjoyable movie throughout. The performances were great, and the build-up of the story led to an emotional ending that was very effective. You know, as the movie just gets along and it tells this really interesting story, once it reaches like the final scenes, it was powerful. I thought it really did hit and land that ending like it needed to. I think it was very well done. Like I said with the editing style though, I do think it was a bit overdone early on. I don't think it always felt like it worked. I think sometimes scenes needed to be a little quieter, you know, a little less music and just not move around as much. I think sometimes some longer scenes, you know, with just sort of character dialogue, like a bit more of that, I think would have been helpful for the movie, just to delve into these characters a little bit more, really see and hear what they're feeling at times, because I think sometimes the style was just a bit flashy, sometimes a bit over the top, but it's not like it's not a major issue. I just think sometimes it didn't feel quite right. But I do understand why they did it, because they do just want to get the ball rolling and get to the point where Elvis is becoming a superstar. Like, they don't want to spend too much time getting up to that point, which I understand, which I think is fine, because there is a lot of ground to cover in this movie. But I just do think in those earlier stages, maybe just a slightly gentler build-up would have benefited the film. Yeah, Elvis was a really, really enjoyable movie. I had a great time with it. It was very interesting, a nice story to get lost in, especially if you don't know the story. I would highly recommend to see this movie, because it's one hell of a story, and you know, Elvis seemed like one hell of a guy. I would rate this movie 8.5 out of 10. Very, very solid. And on the I struggle so much to say this thing that I created. On the rewatchability rating, I would say this is a film that I would watch if it came on late night TV again. For me, it didn't quite hit the same as, say, Bohemian Rhapsody or Straight Outta Compton. They're movies that I might rewatch every few years. But this was still a very, very entertaining movie. It's just got a unique style to it, and I think that's going to appeal to some more than others. But regardless, you should watch this movie, and if you have seen this movie, please let me know what you think about it. I've been Joe Squared, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.